Hi, welcome to SerpentSong Sanctuary. I'm Xanna Seto, and I am so glad you're here. I don't know where you are in time right now. For me, it is Election Day of 2020, November 3rd. And I woke up this morning feeling the collective, let's just say that. I felt very scattered and lots of anxiety and just really all the feels that are permeating our energetic biosphere right now. And so I had to sit down and actually erect a boundary. I noticed as I was moving in the air element that my thoughts were just not cohesive. It just wasn't coming together. But as I progressed through fire and water and finally to earth, I began to feel more grounded and more centered, and it really helped. And then as I called in my connection with Source, I began to feel inspired. I began to feel all of this energy that is just kind of chaotic around us right now take on more of a laser focus. And I got an idea. Today, I would like to introduce you to my little friend, not so little actually. This is Mother Hubbard, the Hubbard squash. And I grew this beauty this year in the garden, and I have so much. I have some that I've already roasted and pureed, and there's just it's just so abundant that I want to make a pie, and not just any pie. I want to create a work of art. So we'll see how that goes. So as we create this work of art today, we're going to be calling in some different energies, some different symbolism for some of the imagery that we're going to use to top the pie off. And we're going to start by creating our dough. So I have here 4.5 cups of gluten-free flour. Now, I'm tripling the recipe so that I have enough to do some beautiful designs, cutouts for the top. But if you like to just do a single layer shell on the bottom, you're perfectly welcome to just use 1.5 cups of the gluten-free flour. And then to this flour, I am going to add 1.5 cups of organic shortening. Now this shortening is made from palm fruit oil, and I made sure that I got sustainably harvested, sustainably grown, orangutan friendly, very important, palm oil shortening. And I put it in the freezer for 20 minutes just so it can really chill, because I always find a very cold dough is much easier to work with. And I'm going to go ahead and add this. I think I'm going to chunk it up a little bit and just add it in. Then I also have 1 1/2 teaspoons of salt. So I'm going to add the salt in as well. And then I've got 1.5 cups of ice cold water. I mean, it's so cold that the top actually froze. So I'm going to have that to the side. I'm going to take my handy dough cutter and cut this shortening into the flour. Just until it's fairly well incorporated. And I'm seeing about pea-sized pieces of shortening in there. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to start to incorporate the water little by little, just until the dough comes together. There's just something about playing with dough that's so calming. We need calming right now. Okay, I don't want to overwork the dough again, as I said in the galette recipe. I think we are there. Yeah, that's looking good. Okay. Yeah, that's good. All right, so the dough is well incorporated, not over kneaded. I can still see some nice little chunks of shortening, which is going to help make it nice and flaky. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a little bit of flour to my work surface. I'm going to grab my rolling pin. So my rolling pin has these handy rings that measure the thickness of the dough as you roll it out. And this is 1/6 inch rings. 1/6 to 1/8 inch thickness of dough is what we're looking for. I'm also going to flour my rolling pin, and then I'm going to take out of this dough that we've made bring it out here. And I'm going to take about 1/3 of it out. Grab my pastry cutter. Cut it into about thirds. And I'll take the larger piece. And then this piece I'm going to wrap in, again, my not so favorite thing, plastic wrap. But I do want to keep it moist. And I'm going to stick it back in the fridge, just so it stays nice and cool. Okay, I'm going to sprinkle a little bit of flour on top of the dough and begin to roll it out. Then once I have it rolled into roughly a circle, I will go ahead and make sure it's not sticking. And then I'll pull it onto my rolling pin, roll it up, and we'll grab the pie plate and transfer the dough onto the pie plate. Here we are. I am going to cover this in plastic and put it in the fridge until I'm ready for it. Now we're going to begin to work on our filling. So I have here 1 tablespoon of coconut oil. And I'm going to heat that in a small skillet. And here I have 1 teaspoon of cinnamon, 1 teaspoon of nutmeg, 1 teaspoon of cardamom, 1 teaspoon of ginger, 1 clove, and 1 teaspoon of coriander that I've ground together. And I'm going to just fry the spices a little bit just to open up the aromatics. Oh, yes. And there they are. It doesn't take long. And I'll just take it right off the heat. That smells wonderful. Great. And I'll let that cool. Now for the rest of the filling, I'm going to take 2 cups of pureed, roasted first, and then pureed Hubbard squash. And to that, I'm going to add 12 ounces of creamed coconut. Now that is this. It comes in a bag and it's pretty hard. In there, the oil is separated from the creamy coconut. And heating it up in a pot of warm water or even slightly simmering water, and then adding enough hot water to that after you take it out of the bag to make 12 ounces gives it a consistency that is somewhat like condensed milk, and it's dairy free. So I'm going to add this to the squash, the pureed squash. Squash, if you think about it, the word squash, even though it comes from an American Indian word, in English, to squash something means to overcome it, basically, right? So definitely putting that energy out. If you think about the way that the American Indians grew their squash, they grew it in a guild. They grew it with beans and corn. And good stuff. And the squash, its function was to protect the ground so that the moisture stayed in the ground. It's as a ground cover. So it's also for protection. I also noticed that hard-shelled squash especially keeps for a long time. So it has longevity and it puts itself out there abundantly. So it's all about abundance. And also, it's a very sustainable crop to grow. It doesn't take a whole lot of water. It's not water intensive. And it just gives. It gives. So squash, all of those qualities of the squash we're putting into this pie. I'm also going to add 1/2 cup of coconut sugar. So lower on the glycemic index. And just to sweeten it up a little bit more, 1/2 cup of maple syrup. Maple symbolizes an offering. Symbolizes generosity. It symbolizes balance, promise, and practicality. All things that we can definitely use in this moment. The coconut in here symbolizes our inner wisdom, our inner guidance. All of this meaning poured into this filling. Really meditating on this as we prepare this offering. And then we're going to use 2 eggs. So the symbolism of the egg is that new life waiting to burst forth, something new waiting to be revealed. egg. I would normally use a hand mixer to blend this all together. However, today especially, I'm feeling like that noise is just not something that would be conducive to keeping my nerves calmed. So I'm going to go with the hand whisk and mix all of this together. All right, and then we have the spices. Pull that out. So this has become kind of more of a paste almost. Ah, beautifully aromatic. I can smell them. So we have the spices in there, and I do want to add one more spice. Vanilla bean. So just make it a little slice down the center of the bean and open it up. Oh, it's so pretty. And then we'll just scrape out the insides. And that's this little bit of vanilla packs a huge amount of flavor. So I think I'm just going to use a half of a bean. I don't think I need this whole bean. This is quite a bit of vanilla. Then I'm going to save the peel because I can use this to flavor my tea and other things. Now I'm going to mix all of my spices in, my flavoring. Then I'm also going to add just a pinch of salt just to bring out those flavors just a little bit more. And I pulled my pie shell out of the fridge. I might have extra. We shall see. No, looks like it's going to be about perfect. Beautiful. Yay. My oven is preheated to 400 degrees. If I were planning on baking this with just the single shell, I would leave it in for 40 minutes and make sure a toothpick inserted in the center comes out clean to know that it's done. However, I am going to be doing something a little bit more with this pie. I'm going to be doing a decorative, artistic topping. So what I want to do is I want to set it just a bit. So I'm going to bake it for about 15 minutes just to get the filling a little bit set so that the dough that I put on the top doesn't sink in. So I'll see you in a minute. So here I have my work surface. I've sprinkled some more flour on the surface and I cut my dough, my remaining dough, into 4 bits, into 4 sections. And one section I cut in beetroot powder to create a red color. Another section I cut in spirulina to create a green color. Another section I cut in cacao powder to make a brown color. And then this one I left just as is. I did cut this up, and in all of them I sprinkled in a little bit more cold water just to soften the dough a little bit more in case the powders also dried them out. And then I'm going to roll this one out. And I went and gathered some maple leaves and other foliage today. And I had to keep them in a bowl of water so they stayed moist until I was ready to use, and then just dab them dry with a paper towel. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to press the leaf in to the dough, just so I know where those veins are. They'll make an impression. And take my knife and cut the outline. And of course, all the while that I'm doing this, I am contemplating the offering that maple represents, the generosity, the balance, the promise, and practicality. Thank you, maple. Okay, I've taken the scraps from the large maple, and I want to replicate this little cedar cone. So cedar is healing, protection, purification, and cleansing. It repels negative energy, and of course, our indigenous peoples, our first peoples here, used it in their prayer. And it's said to evoke healing dreams. Here's one. All right, so here we have the beautiful green dough, and I'm going to do holly and cedar bough with this. Holly is for protection, obviously, with these sharp spines, and dream magic. And then we have cedar. Oh, this is going to be a complex one. By the way, I did wash all of this. Cedar. Cedar is healing, as I said before, when we were making the cones. It's for healing and protection and purification, cleansing. It repels negative energy. It's for prayer and for healing dreams. So thank you, cedar. Oh, this is going to be a good one. right, the last little thing is a few little holly berries. So I'm just gonna cut out some dough, make some little berries, and I want to do a few red maple. Whew, that was intense. Oh my goodness. All right, so now we have to see if we can get the leaves onto the pie. I did add a little bit of macadamia milk to the egg wash. There we are. Okay, here it is before it's been baked. So just to remind you, we have the maple, which is representative of the offering, representative of generosity, balance, promise, and practicality. Oops. And then we have the holly, which is representative of protection and dream magic. We have the cedar and its little cedar cones, representative of healing, protection, purification, and cleansing, repelling negative energy, prayer, and healing dreams. And of course, the squash inside, which is overcoming obstacles, more protection, sustainability, longevity, and abundance. All right, in the oven, 400 degrees for, I would say, 25 to 30 minutes more. And let's see what happens. And here it is. Came out of the oven a few minutes ago. This is my prayer today. That's it for my offering, our prayer together. This beautiful creation that I now have to let cool before I can taste, unfortunately. However, it's been 5 hours so far, so I think I'm gonna call it a night. I'm sure it's going to taste really yummy. Here, I'll just try a little bit of the crust too. Yep. That will taste incredible. Squash pie with a creation, an invocation. If you like what you see here, please consider subscribing to my channel. I really am looking forward to creating more, to going deeper into symbolism, into how we nourish ourselves on so many more levels than just the physical. And I'm so glad you're coming along with me. I look forward to our next adventure together, and I am going to go sit on the edge of my seat, and by the time you see this, you'll know what happened tonight. As for me right now, I'm still biting my nails, so we'll see what happens. I can only surrender it all to the wisdom of the universe. So until I see you again, I want you to be nourished, be inspired, and be transformed. Bye-bye.
Yeah, I said not together. We are writing this story of